Richard Villa Comedy presents.
Speed. Want to try it again?
The Richard Villa Podcast. The Richard Villa Podcast.
That's right, we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Richard Villa Podcast. I have a very special guest today. He is my manager. You'll get to meet him today. Interviewing after asking him for millions and billions of time. Finally, he said, "Yes, I'll do it." I said, "Okay, great." So I want you to meet him. First, before I introduce you, I want to tell you why I admire this man. He's the smartest guy I know. I love surrounding myself with the hardest working, and he loves to do this. He doesn't do it for the money. He does it because he's passionate about it. And he's also 26 years old. So I'm going to die first before he dies, so I won't run out of work. I wanted a young manager, but I really admire this kid, and I think he makes me a better person, not just a better comic. And he protects me, even though the things that I hate is that I'll tell him to do something, he won't say no. He'll tell me, yeah, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, and then we won't do it. And then later on, I found out, oh shit, he saved me out of that big mistake, or good thing he didn't do it, he didn't pull the trigger, because now we would have been in trouble. So it's good, bro. That's what a manager's supposed to do. Do shit that they think it's right. Fuck the artist, but keep the artist happy. Yeah, we're gonna do whatever. So for those reasons, David, I love you, bro. I don't ask for a better manager, bro, because I don't think I would find him. Regardless of what it's been, if I have downs, you have downs. And if I fall, you are right next to me. So it's weird because it's been, what is it, David? 3 years? 3.5 years?
It's been 3.5 years, yeah.
And we've fallen and we've risen and we come back up. And you were there for the big moments, man. And you were there for the shitty moments. You were there in Ensenada when they didn't want to give me any time, and you saw me rip it.
Yeah.
So for me, those moments are special. And I think I'm living the best time of comedy right now. Like I told my wife in the podcast, I'm falling in love with it again. Like it's like an old wife you always had and you mistreated for years. And now you just kind of want to settle down with her and make things right. So thank you, guys. Mr. David Serna.
What's up, guys? Yeah.
His first podcast.
My first podcast. Just really quick about me not doing certain things. I just want to let you know. One, it's because I'm a Taurus. I recently have been getting into astrology a little more. I'm a stubborn man. And second, it's because I'm a millennial, man. I'm lazy.
You do whatever the hell you want to do.
I'm not going to listen to you. But it works. It's salt and pepper.
Yeah. No.
Shake and bake.
And shake and bake. There you go.
No, but I appreciate it, man. You know, and yeah, you guys, I love this job. You know, I manage Richard. I started my own company, Adelante Management Group, back in 2016. And Richard was one of my first clients. I was your first comedian. First comedian, yeah. So we kind of got off the ground running. And kind of a cool backstory, how all of this kind of even started was the first time I ever went to Hollywood was my 18th birthday, and my parents took me to a comedy show, and it happened to be the Refried Fridays comedy show at the Hollywood Improv. So it was a trip because, that was my first ever experience of Hollywood.
That was the first time you ever met me.
Yeah.
On stage.
Exactly. And so that, once again, that was my first time like experiencing Hollywood. My first comedy show, obviously, because I literally had just turned 18. So that was the first time I was even able to go to a comedy show. And then the first person I saw was you. Obviously, you went up on the stage. You were funny. That's when you were doing the drunk decisions joke. I loved it. But it was funny because, you know, so then the show progresses. I didn't even know that's how comedy worked. I had seen some specials where like I obviously like Fluffy's special, the I'm Not Fat, I'm Fluffy special. I had seen like a handful of stuff. So I knew I liked comedy.
But never live.
But I had never seen it. And so I didn't even know like the styles. I just assumed it was like one headliner, but it was cool being able to see the variety, right? And that's when I found out a little more about the structure of shows. But I'll never forget, after that show, that's when it all hit me, man. Like that was actually, it was my first taste of Hollywood, but at the same time, that was like when my love for the show business started. And that's where I think it's just so interesting how this all came full circle, because, you know, literally you're the first comic I ever saw, and you know, to like, I didn't know that I was going to work with you, you know, how many years later? I mean, 5 years after that.
Yeah.
You know, because at that time I had just turned 18. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. But it's funny, like after that first show, I fell in love. I thought comedy was the best thing ever. And then I remember going up to you at the end, thanking you, just super excited. And you're like, hey man, here's 2 tickets for next week. And I was like, wait, I can come back? He's like, yeah, here's 2 tickets. And at that time, I thought I was the most special person in the world. I didn't know that everyone does free shows. But I was like, oh my God, like this guy likes me. Like he's giving me free tickets. Like no one else has this. And that's when you had your, you know, the printed tickets. And I was like, this is awesome. So yeah, I would go every single week. For those of you who met me back in the days from the old times when you guys were doing the Refresh shows with you and Manny, it was a blast, man. Like that was my escape to like my passion, right? Because I was still in school. I played sports. I was always
Did you know
studying.
you were going to manage people? Is that what you went to school for?
Yeah. So I knew like when I was in high school, I wanted to work. I mean, I thought I was going to own the Lakers, which is still a goal. But that was kind of like my interest in entertainment kind of stemmed from just as a kid being into movies, sports, all that stuff. And then it wasn't until I went to that show, though, that I realized, like, you know what? Like, I want to work in this. I think entertainment's awesome. Like, it's cool seeing celebrities because another quick story, like the second show I went to was like when Craig Robinson dropped in. And that was probably one of the first celebrities I had met. You know, like it was just a crazy because I think at that time I probably knew him from one of the movies,
The Office.
And so I was just like, wow, like
Pineapple
this is insane.
Express.
Yeah. And then so to follow that, yeah, I mean, shoot, that summer we saw everyone. This is summer of 2011, by the way. It was right before I went to college, but I would go every single week. Got to see, you know, obviously you every week. Jeff Garcia became one of my favorites.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever get bored of my jokes? The truth, honest truth. Did you ever go,
you know what? I didn't because, and this is something that I learned pretty quickly and how I knew I was going to be good at this is I learned right away that, like, sure, the material can be, like, you could repeat material, but when you have a different audience in front of you, it's a different experience every single time. So I got excited about, because every week that I would go, I would bring people, like new people too. Like I always brought my friends because it was such an empowering like feeling that I got when I first went. I was just like, wow, like I can't believe this is the first time I'm seeing this. I want more. And I want my friends to see it because my friends were in the same boat as I was. They had never been to shows or anything like that. So I was kind of the one bringing them. So I feel like every time I brought them, even if jokes were like, you know, like, because I saw you pretty much every week. I'm not saying that you did the same material because you didn't, but some things, you know, you're gonna
Those
throw
are
in your
just-
jokes
you go
that
to
work,
go.
right?
Yeah.
And I still would laugh because it was just a different experience every time because it was new audiences, or I was with my friends and I see their reactions and I'm like, this is why I love this so much because it's great. And it's funny how later down the line I learned like there's nothing wrong with it. Like your material is your material. If it hits, it hits. Now, if your crowd isn't changing, obviously I could see where, you know, people will get bored or make comments, but I'm one that it's like a song. Like when I have a favorite song, I'll listen to it all the time. If I have a favorite joke, I want to hear it over and over. And one of the first jokes I remember was the Mexican decision joke.
one.
And I was just like, that's funny. I was like, this is just, I was like, I can't relate to it. I was a little kid, but I'm like, that was a clever joke. I always liked when you did that joke. And like my friends always laughed, people always laughed. And I was like, this is cool, man. So yeah, to answer that question, no, honestly, like every time I would show up and see the jokes and see the materials, like it just always, every week I went there felt different. As even though it was the same show, it was every Friday, but you guys did a great job producing it, honestly. And I know because you switched the lineups up and stuff like that, but just in general, it always felt different, and that's why I was just addicted to it. Because I'm like, this, it was just it was a new experience every time, and then every week there was a new special guest. You know, and it was just, that was cool, man.
Yeah. And everything happened. You mentioned Manny. Manny was my other manager, and I had him for, I think, 8 years. Me and him worked together for like 8 years or 7 years together. Great guy. But I understood that he needed to grow. You understand? Like, this is a young man's game. Like, if he could not break in as a fresh new manager at 42 when I met him, and he was going to hit his 50s. And I was thinking, it's not fair that he wastes all this time with me, because at that time when me and him were working, we were still grinding. We were still taking any gigs, anything that came. As time went on, I kept growing as a comic, but I understood that I wasn't growing fast enough for him. And when he made the decision to go to San Diego and meet up with his girl and stay and live out there with her, I kind of looked at it as an opportunity. We were still working together. He says, I'll manage you from San Diego. I said, not a problem. But it was a problem. I needed somebody hands-on here. I couldn't do my job here if I didn't have somebody to help me here. I needed those hands. And I understood he had to leave. And I could have fought for him, and I could have said, listen, man, I'll give you more money. Stay here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Got him another girlfriend, whatever. But I understood that he needed to move on. And he needed to make his life, because with me, it was going to take a little longer.
Yeah, and that, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because so to kind of build up towards that, once again, I had met Richard in it was April 2011. That whole summer I spent going to the shows. And then I went off to college. So I actually got my degree in management, did internships out in New York. I went to St. John's University. Shout out to St. John's. Studied in New York, studied abroad, did a lot of different stuff in college. So by the time I was coming back, I was in a period where I was already starting to basically put this dream together. And it's crazy just how things work, because everything's about timing, right? So while Richard's going through this, I was going through the development of my company. And the way we actually reconnected, I would still go to his shows, by the way. Like, I was in college for 3.5 years. Every time I would come back, I'd still go to the shows, wherever they were at. Improv, John Lovitz, Chinese theater. Like, I followed you everywhere. It was fun. But it was cool because we actually, so when I started my company, I was repping a boxer, professional boxer, Carlos Gonzalez. Shout out to Carlos. And it was actually at that time where we really reconnected, because I invited Richard to the fight. And Richard was all about it. We actually did a little project too, like building up to the fight. So that's kind of what allowed us to get back into it, and we followed up. And that's where I mentioned the timing of everything, because it's like, I'm here starting this management company, and he's going through this transition, and it kind of worked. And that was my audition. That was my debut as a manager, was that first fight. And so I know that there was like things there that he probably didn't know, like just all the work that I put into that first fight, where I'm sure something clicked there too with me, because we had a conversation the next day. Yeah. Where I was like, hey man, like you basically put everything into this. Like,
do you want to know the backstory to that?
Yeah.
So I met you, and we knew each other, and you tell me about Carlos, and I was like, oh, that's great. And I had an idea back in my head. I'm always coming up with these fucking crazy ideas. And one of my ideas was like, hey, I would want to use Carlos as a project. The project would be this. I think that fighters, this is like WWE. The more charismatic you are, the more you sell a fight. Yep. Creating fighters to almost become personalities, and developing them and developing their personalities, almost like the good guy or the bad guy. And I told them, we need to train these fighters, not only as fighters, but also as performers. And I would love to take a fighter under my wing and develop him as a character for people to admire and glorify and go, wow, Carlos the Destroyer, or whatever the fuck we were going to name him. So David was all about it. He was like, fuck it, let's do it. And this was your first boxing client, right? Yeah. So we fell in love with it. We did a couple of meetings with Carlos. And this is all based on him winning. If he continues to win, we continue to work with Carlos. Me, personally, not you. I was going to continue to work with Carlos, and I told him up front, Carlos, I'm not hiding anything from you. The only way this works is if you're winning, because if you're not winning, nobody gives a fuck and nobody's going to listen. But if you win and you help me develop your character, you're going to be a monster in the boxing world. You're going to be able to sell tickets, and that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Selling tickets. It doesn't change. Right. David, you knew that. That night before we went to the fight, or before we were leaving to the fight, I talked to my wife. And I told her, David, Manny's leaving. Manny has to make his own life. I have to let go of Manny. I like David. He's young. He's strong. He's a hard worker. I see how he's developing this fighter. And I'm sorry to say this, bro, but I said, if Carlos wins, I won't bother David. I'll let David do what he has to do with Carlos, because me pulling him away from that will distract him way too much. He needs to focus on Carlos. They're winning. I'll focus on developing his character. If he loses, I'm going to ask him to manage me. I'm going to ask him to help me because that's not the winning horse. I'm sorry.
I didn't know.
And thank God he lost. Because now I got you as a manager. But
Yeah,
I had told my wife that conversation if he loses. And after the fight, I told her, I guess I got a new manager.
It's interesting because that's why I gave that backstory, because so that, you know, while Richard was going through that transition, like he mentioned, I was working with Carlos, and he was my first client. It was amazing experience, man. I mean, we got to start to put a lot of things together, right? We even did like some appearances at shows.
Yes.
We did
Yes,
some
we
like
did.
radio shows. So yeah, we both he and I put it all in. You know, we made the debut as big as it could be. And it was one of those experiences that, yeah, although he lost, I feel like we all learned that night something valuable. And I think it all happens for a reason, you know. And I remember after the fight, you know, and I'm sure we both felt this way, but like it's one of those moments where, you know, reality just kind of kicks you and you're like, damn, like all that work, you know, and this was the result. But the cool thing about it, and this is something I think both he and I could attest to, is like we weren't done by any means. But I know like that day after, for me personally, I was just like, man, like that kind of hurt, you know, but I learned so much. I think both he and I learned so much that we're like, we know that we were going to continue this. To kind of go on Richard's point, like I still ended up working with Carlos after that. And we actually bounced back and won our next fight, which was awesome.
Carlos,
Richard was
by
there
the
too. No, but yeah, I'm giving that backstory because when I was in that place, after that fight, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't going to quit, but that was the first time like it just popped up and it was so soon. And I'm like, man, like that's scary that's even like a thought right now after everything that I had put into this, right? I mean, my whole life was like leading to this career. And I remember I was like, you know what? One thing that I'm still going to do no matter what is call every single person and thank them for coming. Because everyone still bought the tickets, you know, and I thought that was awesome. So I spent that day calling everybody. One of those phone calls was to Richard. And that's all it was. It was just like, hey, man, thank you so much for supporting, for coming. And then that's when the conversation happened where he was like, hey, like, I actually need a manager right now. I like what you did. And we kind of reached the verbal agreement the day after the fight. And I was like, it was just a trip how everything just came full circle. You know what I mean? Like, it was interesting. Yeah.
And first of all, Carlos, dude, I say thank God you lost because I gained a great manager. But I really, from the bottom of my heart, Carlos, I don't want you to take this wrong. I really cheered for you, bro. It was just a thought that I had that I said out loud that it happened. But we tell you from the bottom of my heart, I was really cheering for you, and I still cheer for you. And I'm still waiting for you to come back and show me you're gonna be a fucking champion, bro.
And that's why, I said, what you said, and I'm just giving the backstory because he plays a big part in all of this. I mean, that was how
that's how we met. That's how we met. We had a reason to talk.
Right.
Was
and
Carlos.
So it was interesting. So we have that conversation with Richard, or I have that conversation, and that's really what set it off. I remember it was, I think the fight was on February 18th. So the 19th is when he and I spoke. And then, you know, something that we were kind of talking about earlier about like making things official. I remember I was like, hey, I'm going to write up an agreement because I like to do things very formally, you know, and that was something that right off the bat, I told him, I was like, you know, we're going to create a contract, just something that we have there. It's kind of our bill of rights, you know, obviously, but like any contract, like any manager artist relationship, you should always have that, by the way. It's just some advice. So we create our contract, and we actually, I remember we made things official. I believe in March is like when we actually officially signed everything. And it was cool, man. So, you know, kind of to dig a little bit more into my start, you know, I had Carlos still as a client. I now had Richard. And then that's when I ended up signing Jeremy. Shout out to Jeremy, who's doing amazing right now, by the way. Bro. We'll get to that later. I mean, it's awesome to see, you know, just your clients progress. And that's been the beauty of this whole career so far. And so yeah, we had the three guys. We got started. And I remember one of my first projects actually with Richard was like, he's like, hey, man, I have this guy called Luis de Alba that's coming down in April. So this is already a month after we signed.
Yes.
He's like, I need you to help me promote the show. Like, this guy's big. I have no, mind you, I didn't even know how to speak Spanish at this point. Like, seriously. And Richard knows this. Like, because it's funny now, majority of my business is done in Spanish, but I was just like, all right, you know, it's part of my job. And so I remember I'm gonna tell two stories because the second one's also important. So I remember one of my first projects with Richard was Luis de Alba, and then but before Luis de Alba, he took me with him to Ensenada to do some shows.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool, man. You were doing shows with Jose Luis Sagar and Mike Salazar very early on. I believe it was that. Yeah, it was that show. So
Yeah,
we
in
went down
Ensenada,
there.
that was the one.
And then I think after, is that when you took me to? Was it that same night?
Yeah, buddy, that's where
So I got
were.
blessed very early in my career. Richard took me to eat Chinese food in Tijuana. If you know what that means, then you know. I'm not going to get into it. But it was a very interesting first month working with you.
Yeah, right. You got stopped by the cops.
And then so after eating Chinese food, we were full. We stopped eating, and then we literally as we were pulling out of the Chinese restaurant, I was driving because I was the only sober one.
Yeah.
And
we were all lit, by the way. We were just fucking hammered. and we had, smoked a little bit. And in Tijuana, it's illegal. It's a big deal, especially if you're a tourist. They're going to get you. So the guy in the back had weed on him.
Yep.
And I think he had finished it in Ensenada. We jumped back in the car, and then they stop us.
Yeah, so we get stopped, and I remember they took us out of the car. I'm sure a lot of people have been through this.
Were you shitting bricks at that point?
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, because mind you, I think I had gone to Puerto Nuevo like before with family, right? Just go eat lobster.
Yeah, mom and dad come back.
But that was my first time actually going out in Tijuana. I had no reason to go down there. My parents would never take me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was just confusing because I'm like, I didn't do anything. And so he's like, get out of the car, and puts me up against the hood, arms behind my back, literally takes everything out of my pockets. I'm just like, all right, this is really like weird now. Mm-hmm. And I kid you not, he gets my wallet, counts all the cash I had, because I had cash at that night because obviously I wanted to be prepared. Throws it all on the ground for some reason, and he's just like, then he leaves to his partner. They're talking, they're chit-chatting. Mind you, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here, man. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, why is this going on? I just graduated college a few months ago. Like, I shouldn't be here. And then, but I remember they were talking, and luckily we had two guys with us that were from Tijuana. So I don't know what they told them, but basically we got let off the hook. And I didn't have to pay them, which I thought was interesting, because that's when I learned that people have to buy these guys
why
out.
do you think he threw the money on the floor?
Yeah, and so it was
if
just
you would have
interesting.
just grabbed your wallet afterwards and your stuff and said, bueno, buenas noches, señores, nos vemos, que les vaya bien, and you leave the money there, he's not going to stop you.
Yeah.
He saw the money, threw it on the floor. That's your way of saying there's your bribe, motherfucker. Let me grab my shit now. But you didn't click on because
I
you don't
had
know.
no idea what was going on. So that's where I'm just like, man, like what the hell? So this is all like a month with them working together. And and then to make things worse, so I was driving us back, and then I accidentally went into the Century lane.
Yes.
If you've been through that, it's really annoying because I've done it
Without having the pass.
Yeah. Oh man. So we were in secondary, and I'm just like, man, this night just doesn't end.
Yes.
And so so we make it home, but it was funny because I remember those are just two really quick stories that made me grow up pretty quick. Because even with Luis de Alba, I had to, I was in charge of, help. Richard and I were promoting the show, and I had to learn who this guy was. Once again, I had no idea. But one thing I think I could definitely say like early on is I was never afraid to take on projects. Although I may not have the experience, I was like ready to go, so it was like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's promote this guy and let's make it happen. And I remember he ended up selling out the weekend, by the way. That was like when all of this stuff started. We had to add a second show. He did 6 sold out shows at the Ontario Improv. I remember like the beer sales were like through the roof. They had to like, at one point I think they even ran out. Like it was insane.
Saturday they ran out, so they went and bought some
It was
more.
just insane. And that was just one of those, I think that's when it really like clicked too, when I was just like, wow. Once again, I didn't know I was going to work in Spanish comedy, but I'm like, there's so much potential here. It's a market that's so untapped. And Richard had already been developing it, even before I got there. So I think it was just, once again, everything happened for a reason. The timing of it was great because when I came along, it was just like, all right, not only are we going to develop you, but we're going to develop this genre. I mean, this is a new genre of comedy. This is a new project.
When you came in, was my Netflix show already on the air?
Yeah, so you had already like finished recording it, and then I think you had like one show left, and it's funny because like the opening of the series is a joke about me. And that was when we literally probably like within months of working together.
Yes.
And I'm just like, it's just a trip. So I came at the very end of that. And,
and you got on the show.
And then it got released. But I was like, that's funny. Like, by the way, if you guys watch Sigue la Risa,
it's right
the first joke is about me, and very early on. And so it was kind of funny. So yeah, that was going on. And I think one thing that I found interesting, and I didn't say this earlier. So when I started the company, so there was 3 clients I had. It was, Carlos first, and then Richard, and then Jeremy. So Carlos and Jeremy were brand new to each of their respective industries. Carlos as a fighter and Jeremy as a music producer. So I was working to develop them, and Richard was already in his prime. Like, this is someone that already has been on MTV, Comedy Central, HBO, done shows, toured all over the country, all over the world. So like, that's another thing to take into consideration. Like my work went from just developing, a fighter at that time, to now having to manage someone who's already up there and is successful and has dates and has. So it was a very quick transition. And what I find interesting about it, and what I said earlier, I wasn't afraid of it. That's why I said yes, because I'm sure, like, especially in that moment after that fight, I remember even thinking like, I didn't even hesitate to say yes, because I'm like, no, I'm ready. Like, I went to school for 4 years for this shit.
Yeah.
But then that's when I learned that textbooks don't mean anything in this business, because honestly, it's not the books that taught me what I know today. It's just all the experiences. But I'm like, when else am I going to be able to make this quick of a leap? And I think that was something that I also took into consideration. And it was exciting, man, because right away we were just like, we were all over the place. I mean, that's when Luis came into the picture. So we started doing some shows with Luis. We started traveling. That's when we partnered with another company, and they started bringing artists in. So we would even go on tours with them. I got to go with Richard to Chicago. We went to like Phoenix. We went to all these different places. And so mind you, like, things were starting to move fast. Like, this wasn't just like hey, David, like, I'm going to give you a few, even though like naturally I needed some time to just get experience under my belt, but that's really all it was, because everything else I had to deliver already. But I think Richard had that understanding, like, he's so brand new to this that like you've had a lot of patience with me. But that's when I learned about this business, man. Like, it's not, you can't study this business. You literally, it's just one of those industries, and entertainment as a whole, because I'm still active in other aspects of entertainment. You have to just grow up in it. And that's one thing that I've even learned, like listening to other podcasts with other artists and stuff, is that you just have to be there, man. You just got to be present and just go through the waves that is this business, the ups and the downs. It's so interesting. And I think as like time progressed, that's still to this day, because I still have a lot of the same qualities I had when I started, but just the wisdom that you gain from this business, just being in it, meeting the people you meet, going through some of the shit that you go through, it makes you just so much. I'm improving every day, literally, because I'm just getting more and more experience. And thanks to Richard for like understanding that, because he knows, like, I mean, I was literally as fresh can be in this business. I had produced some shows, and it's funny, I actually just posted today on Instagram. I produced my first comedy show. I used to produce comedy shows before, but that was just for fun. That wasn't even really anything.
Yeah, he called my manager. He called a couple of comics. He put together some.
Yeah, and so like we would do shows at Marissa's, which is a nearby restaurant from where I live, and but even then, it was just something that, coming into this business and having to take on some of the responsibilities that I took, like, you have to be sharp to survive. Like, if I wasn't sharp, because it's not even smart. Like, you could take a kid that had a 4.0 from Stanford, but that doesn't mean you're going to be successful in this business. It's just a matter. It's not necessarily how much you know. It's how quick you can resolve
Have
things.
you seen The Black Godfather, like I told you to watch?
I have not yet. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, guys. Yeah. You want to know what a manager is, what a mover and shaker? Watch The Black Godfather. And that's really what a manager is all about. You're only as good as the people you know. You can maneuver your client around this industry as long as you know and people in different areas where you become useful to other people. You're basically bartering. You're trading
Right.
goods for goods. You're talking to other managers. So you have to literally sink your life into that. That's why Nalip came around. I told you, go there, bro. Because all those managers, movers, and shakers exist there, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, see, and that's something that I was gonna kind of transition to, because I think when we, so that first year that I started was just, and this is 2016, that was dedicated to just literally, it's honestly just getting my feet wet. It was literally, I was like, I knew going into that year and agreeing to work with you and some of the projects we developed that I just need to learn what the hell I'm doing.
Did
right?
you ever think of quitting working with me? Has it ever crossed your mind just quitting?
It's interesting. I think the only time I ever actually really considered it was after that first fight. That was the only time I felt like quitting, like just this in general.
No.
After that, no.
No, I don't give a shit about you quitting. I'm talking about you quitting me, meaning saying, I'm going to walk away from Richard. Fuck it. This is not worth the headache. Was there ever a moment where you were just like, fuck?
No, not. I've never had like a serious thought about it. Now there's been times where you're frustrated because deals fall through, or like, let's say there's those dry patches where like money's not coming in and there's frustration, but to flat out say like, I don't want to work with this person anymore, I've never had that thought. And that's why I'm still here, because honestly that's where I had to realize a lot of things about myself, where I was like, you know what? I know that I just have to like get experience to be really good at this job. Like I can come in, I know how to write business plans. I know how to write marketing plans. I'm the best email sender you'll ever meet.
I love it.
My emails are great. But the thing is that didn't mean shit. Honestly, like what mattered was being sharp, resolving issues, getting shit done. And I think that's something that I just had to, once again, you got to go through it, man. And so I knew that about myself. So I definitely we'll get more into like what we've done together, but like to talk about like current day, like 2020 is the year. Like I've had 3 solid years to really like find out my place in this business. And I've realized that I'm up there with the best, like meaning like, and there's other managers like, people like Barry Katz and all these people, Robert Hartman, shout out to Robert. But like, I'm at that level. I believe that. And it took me some time, but I know like this year, I think I went through a lot this year with just the business, but I know I'm at that level with those guys. And I'm probably one of the youngest people in comedy management. I haven't met anyone yet, but like I have that confidence now. So next year is like, I'm obviously these years have gone by, but I know next year is really like a make or break type of year for me. And it's not to say that if it doesn't go well, I'm going to quit. I'm not saying that, but I'm ready, man.
Boss to the wall.
Yeah, like I'm ready in terms of like obviously setting up, shows and tours and all that, but just in general.
Can I tell you something?
What's up?
I see it. I see it. Like I see it. I see it in you now. I didn't see it in the beginning, but I see it. After the conversation we had before this podcast, I was sitting back thinking, he gets it now. He gets it. I don't know if it's because he finally listened to me or he's fucking, but he fucking gets it. He gets the whole fucking deal. So for me, I see it now, and I believe you, man. I believe you because I've seen the other managers. See, even though I was developed, you still had to sell it because it wasn't to the standards where we wanted it. And
right.
we can do a million shitty fucking shows and make a ton of money. But that's not what we were going for.
See, and that's one thing I definitely want to touch on is because I think when I came in, that's one thing I told Richard. I was like, because that's when I learned, by the way, to reference the beginning, like the whole free show thing. I thought that was amazing at first, but now working in the business, I think it's like
the kiss of death.
It is. It really is. It's great, and it's great for the audience, but for the artist, like your value, there's nothing more valuable than your value, literally. So it's one of those things that I know right off the bat with Richard. I told him, hey, man, like, I think it's great what you've done for your audience, but we're done. We're not doing that anymore. And he listened to me like right away. But it was, and I told him, I explained it because your value is all you have. Like you're all you have. So you need to look at yourself as the fucking prize. And I think that's something that, like he mentioned, we talked earlier because we that's going to be the focus moving forward. A lot of things have happened. It's always been the focus, but I feel like now more than ever, things had to happen for it to really like settle into what it's going to become. And I think that, but that was one thing right off the bat that I explained to him was like, we need to put that value back. And it takes time. It takes time, you know, because people are so accustomed to just, you know, seeing you for free or seeing you at a discount. So you have to give yourself that time also to just step away from that. But I feel like now more than ever, like we're ready. Like this is going to be a breakout, and we'll touch more on that. But yeah, this industry, man, it's definitely, you know, it's so interesting. It's so complex. And remember, I started as a fan. You know, I didn't know what this was going to be like. I honestly thought comedy was the happiest business you could get into. And then you get into it and I'm like, this is the fucking darkest industry ever. And I'm not throwing shade at the comedians, but it's like, in general, I mean, it's like you hear some of these people's backgrounds, what they've got, like, and even the comedians, that's one thing I admire about comedy. It's like, man, you comedians out there, Richard and everyone included, you guys are amazing at what you do, because I know when you get off that stage, I know there's so much shit that goes on for most people, not everyone, but that's one thing where I'm like, man, but when you guys are up there, like, I admire that shit, because no matter what's going on in your life, and some people crack on stage, but like that's your guys' moment to just like, that's your moment to get your release. We're getting our release by listening to you, but like it's weird. It's like a double.
You're helping both.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so that was one thing even with comedy, bless you, that I learned right away too, where I'm like, man, this industry was not what I expected, but I love it. Like it's weird. I just learned about Stockholm syndrome. It's like when you're addicted to, if I'm not mistaken, it's like, it refers to relationships, but when you're addicted to stuff that's like broken and like people treat you a certain way, I'm saying it in a general sense, but that was on a podcast I was listening to, like where they mentioned like, I think I have Stockholm syndrome because I like the terror that comes with this person. And I'm thinking, that's kind of how I feel about comedy. Like it's really, like it's really messed up. That gives you, but it's an industry that is still very pure and has a lot of like positivity to it.
Yeah,
you know?
I think we tend to make mountains out of anthills more than they really are. I think I want to take life differently now, man. After everything that's been happening, I want to just fall in love back with comedy and enjoy it now, because you have a fucking long journey ahead of you. Yeah. I'm almost done. You're going to continue to work, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Oh, yeah. And it's going to hit the fan 100 times, and you're going to learn, but then you're going to learn how to be happy with what you're going to learn, how to let go. As you get older, you let go of shit. Certain things you don't even fucking try to fight. You know what I mean? Can only imagine. But right now, what I love, the fact that you're 26 years old, bro, you have the fight in you because it's coming.
And you know what's cool too is that I'm glad I didn't have any I'm glad I didn't have fast success. As weird as that sounds, you know, because but it's true. Like I haven't had, you know, we've done well. We've done well. We've done a lot of good projects. We've made money, but we haven't had like the full on breakout yet, right? And that's something I'm kind of glad that it's happened the way it has so far, because I feel like if that would have happened, let's just say hypothetically, let's say I win that first fight, then I still sign you, and then we get on Showtime a month after that, and then I'm working with my music producer, with Jeremy, and he gets a platinum plaque even a month after that. Let's say all that stuff happened right off the bat. I don't think I'd be the same manager I am today. And who knows? I feel like that would have been a little more self-destructive. And I've learned in these 3 years of working in comedy, I've seen a lot of the comedians that I would just watch as a fan kind of crumble. And I'm not going to name names, but I'm like, damn, it was a lot of it was because of that reason. Like you get to that moment so quickly, and you don't know how to handle it. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be perfect at handling it, but I think having gone through a lot of the shit that we've gone through, I'm ready for. I feel like I deserve it now.
Listen, I know other managers that, boom, hit the lottery with the first client. Okay, I know they are. Yeah. The problem with that is once you lose that, you won't know what to do. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna panic and you're gonna go, fuck, I didn't do my homework. Yeah. Because it was so easy. And because of your client, you really pissed off a lot of people, because at that point, your client, for example, I know his client does not respect him because he goes, nah, bro, like you're here because of me. The moment I cut you, you're done. He knows that. You know that as a manager. If that was your first year, he's always going to treat you like that. Like, you know, when I say done, you're done. And if he's still a monster in the business and you did him dirty, or he just really despises you to get rid of you, bro, you're done. Meaning he's going to go, I'm not doing any of your venues if you produce anything with that guy. Yeah. He can end you completely, cut your throat. Meaning you are growing. By the time I get my haha moment, my boom, Richard's on top, you're going to go, I don't give a fuck where you go, motherfucker. I was there all the way with you. So when we hit the top, we hit the top. So if you want to leave me now that you're hot, Richard, go ahead, because I already have a roster of other guys ready to go, and I know where to move them. And you're not going to be able to stop me.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, you know, because you asked me the question, like, about quitting, but just in a general sense about quitting in general, right? Because there's been some lows, but yeah, I'm probably one of the most optimistic people you could talk to, because honestly, man, like I'll get down, I'll have my moments, but I'm very optimistic about all of this. And I say that too because I have to convince my parents still that this is gonna work.
Yeah,
but
Mom,
it's true.
This is a real job.
It is, and I think, and I know this. You know, I'm not gonna have my success until I buy my home and I can support myself. I get that, and that's fine. But I will say that, like, yeah, despite all the you know, the downtimes there have been, I feel like I've also made I've done a lot of good so far too in this business. And that's one thing that, like I said, at the end of the day, that's what keeps me going, man. I mean, some of the people that I'm friends with, some of the network that I have is so valuable. And that's one thing it still trips me out. I still get starstruck even to this day. Like, you know, we got to meet, you know, Gabriel Iglesias. Shout out to Gabriel. Awesome person, man. Russell Peters is actually one of the first people I met and actually who gave me time and like talked to me. And I remember mentioning like I was working with you and all that. And these are just people that I like grew up watching, man, and like I admire too, you know. And it's just awesome to like have this network of people that we have. Even my connections, like my corporate connections, are getting better. And I'm telling you guys, like I have people that. And I think about that too when I have like those moments of like frustration. I'm like, I didn't have to, you know, start off as an entry level employee and work 20 years to get to this point. Like I'm already up there with some of the big dogs. Like you guys don't know this yet. It's coming. But I'm doing business with people that I thought would take me years to do business with.
This is why he's holding his microphone in a cup.
Yeah, because I'm lazy. I don't want to hold it because it's gonna make my arm hurt. But no, and that's one thing that, like I said, that's definitely what keeps me going. Is like I have a really good. Not only do I have a great roster because I believe in everyone that I work with, but I also believe in the network I have and the resources that I have. But that took time too. A lot of it came from us working together, the majority of it. But it's also how you sustain those relationships. Because you introduced me to a lot of people, but I feel like being able to, you open the doors, but keeping it open has also been my job too. Because I could have been an asshole and just burned so many bridges for us.
Do you understand my comment earlier? Do you understand what I meant by we growing together?
Oh, yeah.
You are connecting and you're maintaining those relationships. And I understand as an artist that those are good relationships to maintain. But if it was, you come in, I'm already a star. Yeah. I'm already built. And I'm looking at you going like, no. This is what we're going to do. But we're going to ruin those relationships. I don't care. Right. You do what I tell you to do. That's when, as a manager, you keep burning bridges and you go, wow, when he leaves me, I'm really done. Yeah. And sometimes the artist might be doing it just to make sure that you understand you're going to have to stay here at my beck and call. Yeah. And with us, you know everybody I know. Right. Exactly. You know every person.
I could ruin you.
No, you couldn't ruin me. But you could you understand the moment I say I don't want to work with you, you go, it's okay, Richard.
Right.
Because I gained as much as you did.
See, and one thing that I definitely want to say too is that because I feel like certain people put themselves in positions to like, you know, for fallouts to happen, right? And that's one thing that I could definitely say from the beginning, even with Richard and I, to dig more into our relationship as client manager. We've always been very transparent.
Yeah.
And that's because at the end of the day, like for me especially, like what do I have to hide, man? Like I'm growing up in this business. Like you respected that. So to give respect back to you, I'm just going to be very open to you. And I've told you, there's times where I've told you, hey, like I may not know exactly how we're going to get there, but we're going to get there somehow. Like I'll figure it out. I'm very open with you in terms of certain things, but I feel like that transparency is also very important because even if we stop working together tomorrow, it wouldn't be like malicious at all. It wouldn't be. I would still throw you a bone if I can, and I feel like the same here. And I think that's something that's important, just in general. You know, I don't feel like I've burned any significant bridges. There's people I don't work with anymore because fuck them. and I'll be honest. Oh, by the way, comedy has made me cold. I was a fucking teddy bear when I came into this.
You're a beast now.
No, but now like I've dealt with so much bullshit in this industry that it thickens your skin.
Listen,
and so that's just really quick. I just want to make that comment that, yeah, I think like that's the beauty of like the relationship that he and I have, because I know that no matter what, we'll still look out for each other. But that was something that we established, you know, I mean, cause yeah, it is business, but you know, part of like my philosophy as a manager is also to understand my client. So I could definitely say like with Richard, like and I've done that with the majority, with everyone I've worked with. I really want to get to know who you are, because that's the best way I'm going to sell your talent is to really understand who you are, what you're looking for, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And that's just a part of this game too. I don't just look at him as a client. He knows
and not all managers look at it that way. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That's why you are indispensable as a manager. When you are just the day booker, basically you just call in the orders and then they fill them in and then that's it. That's not a manager. That's not even the definition of the manager. Manager is you manage another person's career. You have to know those things about me.
Yeah.
Why would you book me to this shitty fucking venue? You know I hate this.
Right.
We know this. What happens? That's why you're indispensable. That's why when you're already dealing with a big star, that guy's just going to throw you away. You don't start with the big star. You got to develop yourself just like the artist is developing itself.
Yeah.
And, dude, at the end of the day, like I said, you will always know that you're not at his beck and call. You'll never have that with me. And with me is, I don't know if you remember this conversation. I was drunk as fuck in Arizona. And we were at a bar. We were promoting Luis Alba's with Foras. We went to this fucking bar.
Oh, yeah.
And I was drunk as fuck. And I remember I was really fucking hammered. But I remember the conversation. I told you, I don't want to manage. Or even if I manage, that's fine. Later on, when I'm old as fuck and I can't tour, that's fine. I want to be a comic.
Yep.
And I told you, you are going to be one of the biggest managers in Hollywood. And I know it sounded like drunk talk, but I see it now. And I still remember that conversation. And when I saw it, I realized, okay, I still remember that conversation we had. And it's going to happen, bro. Even though it's drunk talk, I'm telling you, it's like you can feel it. And it's weird. Yeah. People said, did you always think you were going to be? Oh, I never thought. Yes, you did. We all dreamed of hitting the fucking home run. We all dream of it. We're all fishing for it. Yeah. My thing is, the only thing I can advise you as a 41-year-old is enjoy every moment. Yeah. That's why I don't like fucking with you on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? I think it's important that you have your freedom to be able to do you.
Yeah.
And I think as a comedians that are listening to this, your manager needs to be him. You can run his life. You cannot demand for him to be at your beck and call. Yeah. You have to. Sometimes it's business, and I bust his balls because, hey, we got to do this. I don't care. It's Luis Alba, is this and that. But personal shit, I think you got to give that space to your manager and let him have those moments.
And likewise, you know, because I appreciate that. But that's also something that I also know, too. You know, I know that there does need to be kind of like a line. And it's not bad. It's nothing bad. It's nothing negative. But it's more just like, hey, when we don't have anything, we don't need to talk. Like, and it's not because we're not active, we're not busy. Mm-hmm. But it's like, but yeah, I'm a big believer, like on my end too, of giving space, because at the end of the day, and I feel like now more than ever, we see like mental health and everything that's like,
Yeah.
you know, coming to surface now. Like, it is important though to just have your time, whatever that is, whether that's you just hanging out at the Improv or that's me just hanging out at Hooters eating wings.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's that it's, you know, we have to give ourselves that time, because we know, let's say out of the 7 days, if there's one day that we don't talk, which is usually the case, like we'll talk Saturdays, Sundays, whatever, but every day during the week, pretty much we're having a conversation, but we're giving each other that time. And I think it's just good in general and that's something I would advise to artists is, you know, make sure you're giving yourself that time, whether you have a family or not.
Yeah.
But you know, the work is important, but it's also just as important to keep yourself fresh.
But now that
Yeah.
being said,
Uh-huh.
there are moments where you do have to be there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For example, like, and I told you about this when I was performing with Franco at the Hollywood Improv.
Yeah.
You should have been there. Like, that's you should have been there moment, because the acquisitions of Netflix was sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
That's a huge connection. That's a mega connection. And I couldn't close the deal because I'm performing.
Right.
So even if he liked me, nobody's going to remind him who was that guy.
Yeah.
Or here's my card. Let's talk about Richard.
Yeah.
That was I should have been there moment. So managers too, you got to understand, you got your space, but you also got to remember, if it's Franco, somebody's big's coming. I better be there. This is not Maggie's Pub down the street.
Shout out to Maggie's Pub though. Great location. No, I understand. Yeah. And I think that's something that, you know, it's interesting how you kind of you have to pick and choose. Are we gonna?
No, we're good.
How much time do we got?
We got 10 minutes, bro. Don't worry about it.
I gotta wrap this all up. But,
You got to wrap up this whole career.
yeah. So that's something I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's true, man. Like sometimes, I think that day I probably was working. I was doing something, but I know like, but sometimes that happens, man. You miss one day and like, it's like
Chappelle
shit.
showed up.
Yeah, no, I know. I remember. I missed that too.
Eddie Murphy showed up.
And so that's one thing too that, you know, I mean, the business is very unpredictable. But in terms of like, I do agree with you when you say just being there, just showing up, because one thing that I did do this summer was go on tour. Went on my first tour. So just to kind of touch on that was an experience, man. You know,
that was a brutal.
I feel like that's a whole.
experience.
I'll definitely come back on this.
That's
podcast
the book.
so we could talk about
That's
it.
the book.
But it was one of those examples of like, I mean, that's if you want to define showing up, it's being on a tour for 2 months straight. Like, there's no breaks. We're driving all across the country. We're there. And it was interesting because it was a great experience, man. But I think, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't ready for it. I think mentally I wasn't ready for it. I knew what it was physically, because I've traveled before, I've done a lot. But mentally, it was just it was just an interesting experience. But I had a lot of moments where I was like alone, tired, driving state to state, you know, across the country. And it was in those moments where, and we were talking about, you know, you mentioned earlier about like falling in love with comedy again. It was one of those moments where I fell in love with this business again, because I was like, this is necessary. You know, like having those moments where you're just really tired, you just want to be home, but you're barely in Ohio and you still got to get to LA and you're driving by yourself in a minivan with the air condition. No, the heater went out while it was cold. And I'm just like, but I love this business because it's like, this is just a chapter of what's going to become my Nobel Peace winning book about just the business, but in general about life. And so it was cool, man. I think we in weird ways we have those moments, you know, whatever it is, of just like these revelations, these epiphanies. And I'm just like, I just know I'm very sure about this, to kind of touch upon like being ready and kind of what, you know, goes into next year. Like, I think we've been through enough, and I've been through enough to just really appreciate this business, but also understand the monster that it is. And I'm as ready as I can be at 3.5 years, because I'm still very young in this business. Like I realize that even though it's been 3.5 years, it's not that much, but like you said, I have my whole life ahead of me with this, but I feel like for 3.5 years, I'm very, very sure of myself. And a lot of people don't get to that point that quickly, because it takes time to really believe in yourself. And then that's where, like, for me, I'm like, all right, having gone through a lot of the stuff, a lot of business deals that we had that fell out, whether they were by our choice or not, some of the people that were shady to us, it was just one of those, like, it was just all you know, it's frustrating, but it was great. They're great learning experiences. But now I'm like, you know what? We don't need anyone. And this is just between like, you know, like you and I working together. Like, it's our time. It's your time. It's your turn.
It's my turn.
Which you guys will know what that means
And then later.
But it's your turn, and it's time now to just, you know, for you to become the star that you deserve to be as well. And that was one thing that we were talking about, you know, prior to the podcast, was just belief. And, you know, I believe in you too. You know, I do believe that you are funny. You have it. You have just the charisma on stage.
You hear that, Mom? You hear that, Mom?
You know, and it's just one of those things that, like any artist, like anybody, more people just have to see that. And I know that once they do, you're gonna be up there with everyone that you've talked about, that you've idolized, that you praised, and you've tasted it. You've tasted success, but sustaining it is my goal at this point, because I know that you've already done a lot of great things, but it's a matter of like getting higher than you've ever been and sustaining it, because I think that's going to be the most fun, is like just keeping you there on top, because I know it's what you want, it's obviously what I want, it's what we both deserve, having gone through everything. And it's coming, man. Like this, you know, there's 3 months left of
life
this year,
cannot be this shitty and not get better.
right.
Does that make sense?
And it's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad,
no,
but we've been through some shit.
We sell it more if we say it's bad. But it's not that bad. It's not bad. But I'll tell you this. It's going to be so much fun once it does happen, because it took us this long.
Yeah.
Because it took us this much pain. When we do get there, it's going to be like, oh my God, let's go have a good time.
Yeah.
Like, let's appreciate this, because we know how hard it costs.
Man. And we have, you know, like I said, we've had our victories. I remember we were, excuse me, back in April, we had a drink in Nashville. That was fun. Like there are those moments where you're just
we
like,
had a good time.
Like
we
did the
around.
Nashville Comedy Festival for the first time. That was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like first ever all Spanish show to be held there. But in general, I think just being there and knowing that we were on the same bill as like Jay Leno and all these major comedians, it was like, this is where we deserve to be, and we're gonna continue being here. That's not that. By the way, we're coming back. We'll be there in November. We're back at Zanies. Shout out to Zanies in Nashville. But I mean, man, we've been through a good fight. It's funny how fighting has just always been. It always comes full circle. By the way, Richard's gonna write a book about comedy and boxing, how they're very similar, because it is true.
Not
it is a
anymore.
fight.
You know what? Realized everybody has that idea.
Okay. Never
So
mind.
I'm like, I don't want to be the asshole that writes it, and then
that's fine.
everybody critiques the shit out of it. It was a great idea, and then I realized everybody has. Russell has an idea of it.
Okay.
Joey Cocotillas has it. So I said, I'm gonna leave that alone.
So, but in general, you know, it's this has been one of my favorite fights to watch. It's been a long fight, but it's going to continue going, you know, and I think it's something that I don't see a lot of things.
What could What could be my downfall? What can you see that could be my downfall?
Just other people at this point.
People around me.
Just people around you. But I was just about to get to that point. I was going to say that, you know, we know where we're going, and the good thing is, like, because I was there alongside you, I also know the type of people that we don't need around us that won't make us productive. And I think because of that, it's just going to be like, we're going to weed out things quicker, because obviously we're still going to get into some business, you know, deals and projects with other people. Obviously, you know, we're going to work with, whether it be networks or other agencies, casting, commercials, television, whatever, venue owners. We're not always going to like everybody, but we just have the wisdom now of like, you know what, if it's just about money, it's cool. We'll go to the next one. Because I want, not only do I want you to get paid, I want you to feel good doing it. But that's even more important. So if we know that it's the same city, you know, we just got to kind of switch up the strategy a little bit, we'll do it. But I think having gone through what we went through, it's allowed me to just be as aware as I could be. And that's only going to get better, my awareness. But I know now, like, I feel it quicker than ever. Like, if there's and we know this because we had a recent situation, but I told you, like, I feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
And I told you kind of early on, before things even really happen. And but
you were right.
It's coming quicker. You know, now I'm just like, you know what? Because it's just, if it's not going to benefit you directly, and you're not you're not the main
Star or the main focus,
it's just
it's
not,
not
it's
going to
not
work.
it's not favorable for us anymore.
Yeah.
Because we can make money doing anything. I
Yeah.
can make money whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
We can make money. So I don't want it to be about that anymore. Our dreams, yeah, sure, we want to become wealthy, but we also want to you want to become a star, I want to make you a star. So let's keep that the focus, whatever that entails. Whether that's us, just going up at certain venues and not getting whatever it is, but we know, and that's what we talked about earlier, like, just restoring some of the strategies that you might have started with, that we kind of started with when we began working together. But we're doing this to just create the star, because the tour is coming. By the way, guys, I know we're about to wrap up soon, but we are going to be announcing very soon Richard's U.S. tour. So that's coming in January.
It's my
Super
turn.
excited about
It's
that.
my
It's Richard.
turn.
That's actually what it's called. It's my turn.
So I'm going to explain to people why I picked this name for the tour. One, I've opened up for, I think, a lot of big people. I mean, Franco Escamilla, Luis de Alba. I've toured with all these guys. Not just them, but in the English world, with a bunch of Willie, with all these guys. And it was never me headlining. I mean, it was me headlining. I would headline the B clubs, but it was never me doing these big Microsoft theaters. It was Franco. I got to do it 3 times thanks to that guy. And those have been like godsend to me, because those are the ones that really, really like inspire me. Like when I tell you that I know it can happen, is because I saw Franco do it. And I saw his human side. And when I saw the human side, it's like almost discovering like, oh shit. So Superman has all these powers, but just because he believes in himself, like he believes he can fly and then can fly. That's what Franco has. He says, I can be a star. And he became a star. You just have to believe in yourself. And it's weird. Watching Franco made me believe in me.
Yeah.
Just being there. So those 3 visits to the Microsoft Theater have been those moments for me that wake me up and say, okay, it's my turn. So now I want to win my spot there.
Right.
Because I know I can do it. I saw
Yeah.
Franco. He's human. The only ability he has is he believes that he can do it.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Right. And and that's, because obviously Richard, this is something we've been developing, for the second half of this year, is getting this tour up and running. Also, like Richard's content, as you guys have seen, the podcast is up and going. We release videos every
Have
week.
we
Stuff's
released
coming
the
out.
What the F Does Richard Think? Or
Not yet. It's
Why
coming
not?
out.
Do you really want to release them, or you don't like them?
Oh, I'm down.
You're down? You sure?
But it's more for technical reasons that we'll get to after.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
But no, yeah, we're doing it,
We're
because
doing
there's
it?
a lot coming, guys. By the way, but just to touch on that, yeah, we the content is there. We're growing that. We know the importance of that. But this tour is gonna be very significant, because it's gonna kick off what's gonna become the rest of his career, which is gonna be him at the forefront.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that you haven't had that yet, but
No,
but we're gonna reboot it.
Look, I'm gonna be honest
and we're
with
gonna
you.
keep it that way.
I took a step back because I didn't want to get. I was lazy. I was like, dude, this is good. I love what I'm doing. I'm developing my Spanish comedy, but get off the pot. You understand? Like there was 3 years of developing your Spanish comedy. Now you're developed. Like now go be a star. Like now go fucking headline. And while I was developing my Spanish comedy, I neglected the English comedy, because everything was happening here. And then I never grew up in the Spanish world. Never said, hey, guys, I'm a headliner. I always opened because I was producing. So now it's time for me to push forward and say, this is what I'm doing.
And it's going to happen, guys. It's going to be good. Are we wrapping up?
Sure. Let's wrap up. We're at about 3 hours. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're good.
Okay, cool. But yeah, but just to kind of conclude it again, guys, for everyone listening, thank you guys for your continued support. I see like people commenting, people sharing. Our numbers are going up every week. It's awesome. This is a great podcast. Keep listening. Subscribe on YouTube. And yeah, guys, we have a lot coming up. So definitely, if you don't already follow Richard, follow him at Richard Comedy, Richard V on Facebook. Just remember that, like I said, we're going to put everything that you heard today and more, we're putting it all together, and a lot of very special things are going to be happening. I also want to just shout out some dates that I have here.
All right. Shout out some dates, Mr. Promoter.
If you guys want to, come out and check out some of our work, Richard will be involved in some of these projects too, but we'll be back at the Brea Improv in November, Ontario Improv in November as well. Alabama, Tennessee. Richard's going to Laughlin at the end of November. We have a lot of stuff coming up, guys. So also, follow Richard, to check out his latest calendar, see what's going on. And yeah, guys, definitely a storm is coming. I know that's said a lot, but it's the truth. I think, we both have been working hard. We both have been developing, obviously what we're doing together, but even just individually, we're developing a lot. And it's going to be great. These next few months are going to be solid. Next year is going to start off great. And yeah, man, this was fun. Yeah, I mean, we could keep going, but
no, this is what I want to do. I want to do this. If you are a comedian, if you're a manager, and you want to ask David questions, we'll have another podcast. But if the demand is there, and the 2 listeners that we have, hi mom,
hi mom,
there you go. Those are the 2 listeners we have. Want to ask David, the manager, questions, and he'll twinkle you with knowledge powder and tell you exactly what the business is. So, guys, I'm Richard Villa. What is your social media handles?
Thank you guys again, David. You could follow me at Adelante MG. That's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Adelante Management Group is my company. Yeah, guys,
Let me ask you a question, David, and I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Would you manage another comic?
I would.
But you would handpick them, or what is it? You haven't seen one that you said, hey, that's the guy I like?
Well, I have one that I'll be announcing soon that we're working with, but you're familiar with that. But in terms of like here locally in Hollywood, yeah, I have guys on my radar, but it's, for me, the biggest thing is work ethic. So if I see you consistently on flyers and you're busting your ass, you're working, you're going to continue to be on my radar. But I think right now I want to focus on what I'm working on, because I do believe in it. I do believe in casting a big net and stuff like that. Because, by the way, we didn't get into it, but I also have clients like in acting. I've done stuff in music and all that. But with comedy, yeah, I definitely am interested in the future. But I like where I'm going right now with some of the projects that I have. So I want to continue developing these. And once I feel like these are rotating, a little more,
running smoothly,
then I'm interested. Yeah, because I do feel like naturally I'm just getting a lot of success. Naturally, I know I'm gonna get better at this, and so that'll definitely come. But I do have a high standard with comedy. I'll be honest, because I have seen a lot of things that I don't like in certain comedians, and it's not the personality; it's more in the work ethic. I'll be honest. Some people just don't have it, or they sell themselves too short. But that's also where I come in too. Some people just don't have that advice, don't have that person advising them that they should be doing this differently. So I know, because I've been approached by other comedians, and it's not to say that I'm not interested in working with you. It's more just I'm a big believer in timing, right? Because I do feel that I'm still making my impression right now in this business. So once I've solidified my reputation, not completely solidified it, but made a strong enough impression with my reputation, I am going to open those doors, because then I have not only the respect from the industry, but also the network to be able to sustain it. But I know I could help a lot of people. Just, to start off, I know I could help, but I want to make significant moves first. And that's why, like, for me, having one of the other comics that I'll be announcing soon, that's going to be the focus, is, keeping it's quality over quantity. And I'm not saying that there's not a lot of quality comedians, because there are.
Hear that, guys? I'm quality.
But that's what it is. We have to, and my belief is, like, you got to do it right before you continue to, like, open up your service.
All right, well, don't give it all out right now. Let's do another podcast, because we're about to record a second one. But guys, this is Richard Villa's podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Good night, everybody.